my name is HAPruitt and I'm the author of Anelthalien. And in this video, I'm going to do something special because I'm making this video during the week of Christmas and I just want to give you guys a fun present video. And so in this video, I'm going to read the first chapter of Anelthalien. So the first chapter is called A Flawed Demise. Blinda gazed around her spacious throne room. It was the same as every other day, and yet it was unsettlingly different. The vast peacock blue floor in front of her usually contained a wide variety of people, townspeople, castle workers, travelers paying her respect, and numerous others, but not today. Today, the giant room created for containing all sorts of activity lay quiet and empty before her. Blinda slowly surveyed the beauty of the room that she hardly ever saw through the normal, constant human crowd. She swept her eyes across the shimmering blue floor and noticed how the light from the glass dome above made it dance like water. Then she moved her gaze over to one of the rich mahogany walls. Slowly she counted the number of doors spread across the wooden wall, and then lowered her eyes back to the shimmering floor. Blinda was about to move her stare to the opposite wall to see if it held the same amount of doors, but a small movement to her right made her jump and clutch the golden arms of her throne. "Oh, so sorry, ma'am. Did I scare you?" A little girl had emerged from one of the doors Blinda had just finished contemplating. She grinned in the funny way she always did, with her teeth bared and nose wrinkled. Blinda relaxed and smiled at her awkward grimace that was meant to show a friendly greeting. "No, dear, you didn't scare me. It's just so quiet today, and I wasn't expecting you yet." Blinda tried to return a friendly smile to her little apprentice, but heard the lie in her own voice, and turned her face back to the opposite wall to try to resume the count of the doors. Adeline closed her smile, but wrinkled her nose even more, and tried to make sense of Blinda's odd behavior today. Usually, Blinda came to wake her up before the sunrise and help her prepare for the day. Then they would go to the throne room together and conduct the kingdom's business. Today, though, none of that had happened. Adeline had lain in bed, and only once she couldn't stand to stay in her bed any longer had she begun to wander the halls to find Blinda. Adeline had noticed that the castle was strange today, too. Never once during her search had she seen a single person, when on most days she couldn't find a room that didn't contain 3 or 4 people bustling around. And now Blinda was saying funny things and staring at walls. Adeline tilted her head and wondered what could be happening today. "Are we having a party?" she asked, still standing by the wall. Blinda slowly spun her head back around to the little girl. "What?" "A party, like a surprise for someone? Is that why everyone is hiding?" "No, dear, no party." "Then where is everybody? They have to be somewhere. Are they hiding, or did everybody sleep late like me? Oh, is everybody still asleep? Should I go wake them up?" Adeline spewed the last few thoughts out excitedly. She loved to roam about the castle and discover all of the rooms, and the opportunity of doing that made her giddy. "No, Adeline," Blinda curtly replied. Then, realizing her harsh tone, she spoke gently to Adeline. "Do come and sit down, dear." She extended her hand toward a now dejected Adeline and beckoned her over to the smaller throne at her side. Once Adeline began to slide over to her side, Blinda sighed heavily and apologized. "Now I am sorry for becoming short with you, dear, but I have much on my mind." "Like what?" questioned Adeline as she slipped into her miniature throne. Blinda avoided her question and instead decided to try to explain the emptiness of the castle. "Today we are going to have a quiet day. A quiet day for just you and me. Does that sound all right?" Adeline tilted her head and wrinkled her nose again. She wanted to ask why or say no. The quiet really did not suit her. But out of fear of stirring Blinda's reproach again, she simply nodded. "Good." Blinda smiled down at her little apprentice, and then reached down on the other side of her throne and brought up a small golden book. "Here, Adeline." She put the book into her hands. "You can read this for now. It has much wisdom you'll find useful when you take my place." Adeline let the pages fall open and smiled her grimace up at Blinda. Only half satisfied with her shoddy job of appeasing the girl, Blinda forced her attention back to the quiet room. She shifted her gaze back and forth, from wall to floor, then floor to wall, but never let her eyes touch the enormous doors that lay straight ahead of her. Her attempt at avoiding them, though, failed after several minutes of examining every other detail in the room. As reluctantly but longingly as a mouse drawn to cheese on a trap, She let her eyes settle on the huge wooden barrier between her safe haven and the rest of the world. The main doors were crafted from the same thick, luxurious reddish wood that the walls were crafted from, but the sweeping gold floral curves that wove their way up each panel made it hard to avoid their beauty for long. Blenda traced the gold paths in her mind, not caring where they took her as long as they did not come to an end. She rested her elbow on her throne, leaned forward, and laid her chin on her hand as she continued her wanderings. The shift caught Adeline's attention, and she stopped pretending to rifle through her book. She peeked at Blenda from the corners of her eyes and examined her face. She knew today was different somehow, and was sure that some sort of surprise was coming. She kept watching Blenda in what she thought was a sneaky way, to see if her actions showed any signs of the surprise. Without realizing it, Adeline slowly leaned forward too and fully stared at Blenda's mesmerized face. The little girl watched the queen's eyes smoothly drift up, around, over, down, and every which way. She broke her stare to also look at what Blenda was watching, and the second her eyes flicked to the door, a low rumble, not just audible, but felt in the soles of their feet as well, rolled over the quiet room. Adeline's eyes snapped back to Blenda, but she was not met with the anticipated comfort that the calm adult usually gave her. Blenda's eyes had stopped their quiet journey and were now slightly widened and locked on one spot, straight ahead. Adeline frowned at the fear she saw. "Ma'am?" she said softly. "What?" Adeline. Blenda cut her off without moving an inch. "Listen to me." Another, slightly louder rumble shook their ears and nerves again. "What?" Adeline tried again, this time in a frantic whisper. "Adeline, listen to me." Blenda kept her eyes straight forward, but laid a hand on Adeline's arm and gently squeezed it. "Go to my bedroom. Under the bed is a loose floorboard. Find it and move it aside." Another tremor broke out like raging thunder overhead, and Adeline let out a terrified moan. "Oh, what?" Blenda finally turned her face to Adeline and looked straight down into her wide green eyes. "Under that board is a little box. You bring that box here. Understand?" Adeline tried to open her mouth but couldn't find words. Did you hear me? Do you understand?" Blenda was trying to keep her voice calm, but it came out rushed and hot. Adeline nodded vigorously and shook her arm free of Blenda's increasingly tight grip. Blenda watched her black hair fly out like a sheet of night behind her as she fled out the same door she had come in earlier. Just as the door snapped shut, the tiny click was drowned out by another now deafening roar. Bits of sawdust and wood slid down from above and dulled some of the glittering blue swirls before her. Blenda tried hard to keep her stare on those tarnished spots, but the lure of what was coming dragged her eyes back to the huge wooden doors before her. The din of the last rumble completely died, and she was left alone in silence once again. Then the doors began to crack open, and out of a strange mix of adrenaline and bravery, she stood to her full, impressive height to meet her adversary. As the doors opened, a great light silhouetted the figure standing between them for a moment. Blenda squinted and turned her face a fraction away, but never let her eyes leave the form. Her mind began to race as the door swung shut, and the small figure of an otherworldly woman materialized in front of her. "Blenda, darling, it's been..." The small but fully grown woman smiled and showed a row of dangerously pointed teeth. "Ages." She took a few steps forward, and Blenda was met with the full oddity of this woman. She could not have been over 5 feet, but was very curvaceous, dressed in a form-fitting, blood-red gown that spilled into a puddle over her feet. Her skin was the purest white Blenda had ever seen, even more bright and unblemished than snow, and her brilliant orange locks curled and twisted as if on fire. The most shocking feature was on her beautiful porcelain face, though, her blind eyes. The 2 holes where eyes should have been were cloudy white orbs of nothingness, but they seemed to be looking right into her own blue eyes. Blenda couldn't help but frown in disgust at the odd sight in front of her. "Clarice," she said with disdain. "Oh, good. You've remembered." The woman gushed in a deep, rich voice with mock excitement, and Blenda frowned even more. The low purr that emitted from Clarice did not fit her small frame and added to her sinister image. I really had thought you'd forgotten all about little me." "Of course not. You are quite unforgettable." "Oh, well, how flattering. I feel I should blush." Clarice playfully sighed and began to step closer. Blenda shifted her weight anxiously, and Clarice immediately halted, turning her ear toward Blenda. Then she let her eyes slide back onto her and smiled again. "Why so troubled, dear, dear Belinda? Am I unexpected? Surely you did not think I was gone for good." Belinda said nothing. "Because so many did," Clarice continued. "I heard all sorts of nasty rumors about the terrible, evil queen being vanquished, lying down and dying, just giving up and letting the wonderful Queen Belinda have her time. Isn't that sweet? Your people do love you, Belinda. Stop stalling and do what you've come to do. Go ahead and kill me." Belinda snapped at her, greatly disturbed by all Clarice seemed to know. "Oh my, no need to become hasty, my dear. I'm not going to kill you. At least not yet." She grinned again. "We do have some time to catch up and chat. And isn't that what you enjoy? To surround yourself with lovely little people and have nice little chats?" Clarice's sickly sweet pretense was beginning to succumb to her true malevolent self. Belinda shifted uncomfortably again, and Clarice twisted her head like a bloodhound catching a scent. "Ooh, struck a soft place, have I?" she hissed happily. "You, of all people, should know, Belinda, that I did not just fade into the night, never to be seen again. You should have known I would appear before our time ended. You see, Belinda, darling," she vomited out the word this time, "even though I did not show my face to every living soul to assure them that everything was all right and as planned as you felt the need to do, I was still very well aware of the passing time and what was happening in all of Anelthalien around me. That is where we are so different, my dear. You believe that you should surround yourself with people, so many people, that in the end will simply let you down, and all of my subjects are loyal." Belinda heatedly interrupted. "You cannot make me believe one of them betrayed anything to you, you vile harpy." "Oh dear, that did sting," Clarice dryly commented with an unaffected face. "Anyway, you surround yourself with all your lovely subjects who trip over themselves to drink up your thin reassurances, and I choose to work entirely alone. And see where we both are now." She spread her hands out and gestured around the huge empty room. "We are each completely alone. Except I chose this way, and you did not. So tell me, what are you going to do now?" A long, tense silence opened up like a chasm between them, and Clarice crossed her arms and tilted her ear toward Belinda again. "I can wait, my dear." "No, you can't." "Oh, yes, I can. You have as little time as I do, and how I spend it hinges, as you know, on how you spend it." Clarice slowly responded, letting each word sink into her mind. Belinda swallowed and tried to gauge the time. Her day had passed so differently that she was unsure of just how much time they did have. Her thoughts were cut short when a small snap made both women twist their necks toward the wall. Adeline stood in front of the same door she had exited earlier, staring terrified at the newcomer and clutching a small wooden box. "Ah," Clarice purred, "and who do we have now?" "No one," Belinda darkly replied to Clarice. Then she motioned for Adeline, and the little girl quickly scurried to her side and buried her face and treasure in her skirt. "I'm scared," she whimpered into Belinda's dress, and the queen ran one hand over her small head. "Shh, shh." She sighed down at her as she pried the box from Adeline's trembling fingers. "You will be fine. Just stay by my side." "Oh, no, no, no," murmured Clarice brightly. "We must become acquainted, young miss. Do tell me, what is your name?" Adeline unburied one eye for a moment, whined, then dove back into her hiding place. "No need to be shy," Clarice began as she started forward again, but at the sound of her steps, Adeline let out an ear-splitting bawl that echoed through the hall, and Clarice stopped her progress. "She's an awfully noisy thing, isn't she?" Clarice grumbled with disdain, but Belinda didn't hear her comment over Adeline's extended wail. Clarice frowned as she tried without luck to distinguish any other sound through the girl's crying. "Belinda!" she called angrily. "Make that wretched child stop, or I will." "Hush, hush," whispered Belinda over her apprentice's head as she tried to detach her from her dress. Adeline ended her vocal wails, but gripped Belinda's skirt tighter and kept her head hidden away in it. "Now, we really are running short on our time. Clarice suddenly took a quick, impatient tone, leaving all playfulness aside. You feel it as well as I do, I am sure. So, Belinda, oblige me one small favor and tell me who that loud child is. No one you need to know of, Belinda insisted. Suddenly, Belinda swayed as she felt the room spin and knew she had to act quickly. Oh dear, that is quite unfortunate, Clarice menacingly whispered. Belinda regained her balance as she watched Clarice turn her unseeing eyes up and then raise her white arm up also, as if to sense how far the ceiling sat above them. In a second, she brought her arm down like a bolt of white lightning, and another terrible rumble shook the whole room, as a blinding light pounded against the great skylight above. More sawdust and wood splinters tumbled down and rained on them all. I can bring this palace down upon us all, and you'll have no chance at carrying on your line. Clarice began, but Belinda cut her off. Do what you've come to do. Take my life and leave it at that. At this statement, Adeline began to screech again. No! No! Cease, you obnoxious demon! Raged Clarice as she swayed back and covered her ears. No! No! Clarice raised her arm again, and this time when she brought it down, the thick glass above cracked like 1,000 whips and a million lines spiderwebbed across its surface. Take me and leave everyone else, Clarice, Belinda yelled over Adeline in the thundering din. Oh, do not put on your show any longer. Clarice snapped back as she brought down another fist and cracked the glass overhead even further. I know who the child is and what you've brought her here for. Clarice swayed slightly and put out her arms to steady herself. As Belinda watched her, she felt the same dizziness shake her own body and felt a chill dance up her spine as she realized Clarice had never intended to kill her. She was definitely here for Adeline. No, she softly murmured as she closed her eyes to focus her balance. Clarice, though, did not hear her small plea and recovered her senses quicker. And now is the time to tell you my plan. Through fuzzy eyes, Belinda saw Clarice raise her palm and beckon. You hand that child over to me and she becomes my heir. No! 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 At Clarice's words, Adeline increased her volume and began to shake her hands, causing Belinda to twist and completely lose her balance. The pair fell, and the wooden box tumbled out of her hand. Adeline lost her breath as she fell, and so her wailing ceased. As the box hit the floor, its heavy clang rang out loud and clear. What is that? Hissed Clarice, and turned her head jerkily back and forth to detect the noise. Belinda threw a hand out over Adeline's mouth to keep her quiet. When Clarice received no answer, she became enraged. What is that? She screamed, and brought down another bolt from the sky. This time the bright light completely shattered the glass canopy and rained blazing shards down on them all. In the midst of the chaos, Clarice darted forward and grabbed Adeline around the middle and began to drag her toward the huge doors. Adeline burst out with even greater volume, right in Clarice's ear. Yeah! No! Let me go! The little girl screamed. She thrashed with vicious might, but Clarice held her with a ferociously tight grip. Belinda watched the pair slowly make their way to the doors and tried to raise herself up off the floor. As Clarice yanked Adeline's twisting and flailing figure further away, though, Belinda felt her strength fade even further. 1,000 thoughts rushed in her mind as she continued to struggle against her failing body. Had she waited too long? Had she chosen the right path? Would anyone come to see her before her life ended? Belinda closed her eyes and shook her head, trying to shake away those thoughts that didn't matter. Another wave of fatigue gripped her, and before she could shake off her stupor, her hand slid across the floor and would have slid completely out from under her if it had not hit the little wooden box. And the second her hot skin connected with the cool wood, her eyes popped open. Adeline's cries became muffled, and Clarice spun around. Belinda looked steadily ahead, right into Adeline's wide eyes, but curled her fingers around the box and brought it to her side. What are you doing? Yelled Clarice over Adeline's attempts to keep screaming through her hand, which she had slapped over the girl's mouth. I can hear you, Belinda. Answer me. What? Ow! The hand that Clarice had been holding over Adeline's face suddenly shot in the air, and then before Adeline could suck in breath to take up another round of her wailing, it came back down, knocking violently into Adeline's skull, and bringing another terrible rumble with it. Belinda kept watching, hardly believing her eyes, as she saw what had been the cause of the thunderous roars. Straight down through the gaping hole in the ceiling, a gigantic pillar of fire twisted and then exploded when it slammed into the floor. It broke into a million scalding tongues that shot in every direction and began to devour the beautiful wooden throne room. "What is it?" Clarice was still screaming at Blinda from across the inflamed room. Blinda broke her eyes away from the destruction around her and squinted to see Clarice through the smoky black and bright orange haze. Clarice was still standing and facing Blinda, but her posture was beginning to give way to the weakness of oncoming death, and she was struggling to drag a now limp Adeline back toward the enormous doors. Still with her eyes set on the pair, Blinda pulled the little wooden box into her lap and passed her hand over the lock. "Open," she whispered, and then let out a terrible cough. The smoke from her burning castle was speeding her oncoming demise. She let out another horrible cough, and then took her eyes off Adeline and Clarice to focus on the picture of hope tucked in the tiny velvet interior. She breathed in one last gasping breath, then spread one hand over the open box and coughed, "Send us help." From across the room, Adeline rolled her head around, dizzy from Clarice's blow. She pulled open one eye to see the floor dancing and shimmering with light as never before. Adeline smiled, rolled her head to the side, and saw Blinda sitting in a crumpled heap on the floor with a little wooden box open in her lap. She tried to call out, but found the air impossible to breathe. After a fit of coughing, she forced her eye up again and saw a light shine up out of the box, illuminating her queen's face one last time. As the small glow faded, Blinda slowly slid sideways onto the floor, and Adeline's eyelid dropped, and she slid back into darkness. So that is the first chapter of Anelthalien. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, consider buying it. It's on several online retailers, including Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Kobo. Just type it into Google and see what pops up, or go to Amazon and buy it. Also, I want to tell you something exciting. Somebody's been asking me if Anelthalien is going to be an audiobook, and I wasn't sure because I published it through Elm Hill, and so I had to get permission. And I finally got an email back from Elm Hill, and they said I can do an audiobook. So in this coming year, 2021, I'm gonna make Anelthalien into an audiobook. So you can hear me read all of the book and all of the voices and all of the screaming. There's not a whole lot more screaming than in the first chapter. But that's really exciting. And I also want to say, if you enjoyed the book, please consider joining my launch team. If you are a writer, it's going to help you learn so much about publishing and marketing. If you're not a writer, you're just going to get to be a super fan of Anelthalien, enjoy the book, have the opportunity to win prizes. The launch team is for my second book that's coming out in the summer of 2021. So I've got all those links below in the description. Please check them out. Check out my website. And thank you so very much for watching. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you want to read the rest. And it's Christmas, so Merry Christmas! Bye! If you want to know more about Anelthalien or HAPruitt, please follow me on Instagram at HAPruitt. You can find me on Amazon as an Amazon author, HAPruitt. Please watch my YouTube channel and all my cool videos on my channel, HAPruitt and Anelthalien. You can find me on the Facebook page, HAPruitt and Anelthalien. You can follow me on Goodreads by the name HAPruitt and the book Anelthalien, or you can go to my website where so much cool stuff about Anelthalien is. The website is HAPruitt.com.